Hey, what's up? So, had a thought today, and I was waiting for something else to come, a different mood or a different way of thinking, a different idea, I suppose. But what else would there be, you know? But what comes naturally. So, I'm gonna go ahead and rock with this. I was thinking today, like, I get emails. I don't know where I signed up for this or when I did this, but at some point, I signed up for a reading, like a reading for tarot and like your numbers and the angel numbers. It's the angel numbers. And like, you know what I mean? you know, the Gentiles, trying to decipher things and assigning things to the Lord, using the Lord's name in vain. It's not my place to judge, but stuff's not for me. And you know, it's interesting. I actually went and it said, "Oh, free personalized reading." I was like, "Okay." Everybody knows this BS, but I was like, see what it says. And things it was saying were like, I want to say 90% spot on. I mean, it had a couple things, it's talks about money and your motivation. Obviously, it's different for me, but it was pretty close. Apparently, I'm a master number 11 and soul number 9. it just or and a seven. So 7-Eleven, 9-11, you know what I mean? it just never fails, does it? It's beautiful how the Lord works, even through, people who aren't necessarily within the Lord yet. So it's interesting. I don't take that as an authority at all. I just wanted to look at it, find it was interesting. And this verse came to me, Isaiah 8:19. When they say to you, consult the mediums and the spiritists who whisper and mutter, should not a person consult their God? Should they consult the dead on behalf of the living? I mean, it's like, why should you ask spirits and ghosts and demons and the dead and all these charlatans out here for information when you have a direct relationship with God? Ultimately, that's what all these people are trying to emulate is a direct relationship with God like we have. We are granted free entry into the spiritual realm through our God because He sacrificed His only Son for us to open a door inside of our mind and inside of our spirit for us to see through and serve our purpose. You cannot open that door, you cannot use that power for evil. I mean, I'm sure it is possible, but if you do, you'll be cut off. I don't mean like making mistakes in your life. I don't mean like not being perfect or doing something that God doesn't necessarily like. It's like really being like willfully evil, like purposefully knowing better and doing something very very bad. Like satanic rituals and abuse, and like satanic ritual abuse and using things to make money, like using the signs God gives you to manipulate the world and manipulate the people around you so that you can gain physical resources. That's obviously not what was intended. The people who have those powers, who are granted that, right, were the people who built the world. But that was only for a period of time so that they could build the circumstances for our current situation to come about. And since they decided not to give up their power, they went with Satan. They went with the entropic force. They instead turned on God and used the things that God taught them in order to do something good and do evil with it. Do things that cannot happen, that should not happen, that will not happen. You know, when we leave this place, these things will not come with us. And if that constitutes the entirety of your being, then you cannot come into the kingdom of God. Because there has to be something left for God to bring you up with. I really have this hopeful, very, I don't want to say lenient view of God's burden on you and God's asking, but I guess you could say that. It's not laissez-faire. I'm not saying you should tempt God. Obviously not. That's against the law. But what I am saying is that it's about your intention that's important. It's about your intention of what you want to do and what you're trying to do, and asking God for favor in that and for power in order to do that purpose. It's not about being like exactly Jesus Christ. As you walk towards that, you work towards that as a figure, but knowing that you'll never be God ever, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we want. We want to walk with God and be with God as we live our lives. That's the purpose. It's beautiful. It brings purpose into your life. You know that. You know, it's what creates. It's what creates the meaning in our lives. Is through that purpose. And the more that we set our intention, our attention towards that purpose, whatever God has given onto us, the more power we will receive. The more accountability that we take, the more power we will receive. I know that for my sake, while it may not seem that way to those around me, it may not seem that way to people who know me, who are close to me, I am becoming more powerful as the days go on. And it's not power in the sense of like controlling people. It's power in the sense that when I go out to do the things that I need to do in order to serve the purpose for God, He is allowing me to have more and more authority. He is granting me more audience with Him and allowing me to express ideas that He wishes to bring into the world to bring about the events that need to transpire inside people's hearts and souls. You know, I was going through YouTube today. Bad habit. Scrolling through shorts. Really bad habit. I gotta stop that. I need to, if I quit video games. I quit video games. I quit watching like junk. But the shorts, sometimes I still sit outside and I'll scroll through them, a little bit every now and then. But even then, I'm granted truth through that. You know, it's like reading tea leaves and reading bones and reading patterns of like pine straw. It happened to me today. I was outside on the porch and I come to walk in towards the porch and I look down on the porch and there is a pentagram perfectly made out of pine straw, like pine needles, sitting there right next to the door. Like just perfectly. Like no one placed that there. No one made that. It was just like that. From the wind blowing. It was raining, the wind was blowing outside. Now you would say, what was that? The wind blew it that way. It's just a coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. That there is no such thing. There never has been. Everything that happens is in accordance to your either what's happening inside of you, what God intends, your will, your intent, God's will. Someone's will is being enacted in order to have physical reality come to fruition. That's all there is to it. So that's why you can read anything because you have the authority. You are the law if you have the Spirit of Jesus Christ. Period. As long as you follow God and and as best as you can, His commandments to you and what He leads you to do, you have that power. There's no particular ritual you have to go about doing it. To me, I know to a lot of people out there, anything I look at, you can get information from anything. And today it was a little muted today for me. I didn't see too much. I didn't really go out anywhere, to be honest. I didn't really do much. I wasn't at work today. But then, just to shake me out of that, there's that pentagram with the pine needles, and I was like, what? You know what I mean? It just reminds me, like, look, this is still happening. This is still true. And I don't request a sign from God. I don't request a sign from God. I have no right to say that God should give me a sign to show me that He's still here. You know, that's not why I would ask God for something like that. I only ask God to give me what is necessary for me to be able to fulfill my purpose, and nothing more, nothing less. That's all. There's no other thing that I would have to ask for from God in that regard. I don't I don't seek knowledge for the reason of recognition. That's something I had to deal with when I first started making these videos too. Was like that's like part of I had to shake that off. I had to shake off all these misconceptions about myself, like things that I thought that like being whispered in my ear, by my evil side or by Satan or the world or whatever you want to call it, my mind, was that like I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. I went through all those reasons one by one until I came down to the fact that I'm doing this for God and God alone. And by simultaneously I do it for myself. Because if I'm serving God, I am serving myself. Period. God is the one that loves you the most. So if you're serving God, you're serving your best interest as well. And the best interest of everyone around you as well. Even if they're evil. Even if they're evil people, serving God is still the best way to help the people. Like you can't help them by pursuing their goals or by helping their goals because their goals are evil. Their will is evil. Their will is set against God. So helping them would only further them stray from God even more. It's best to just follow whatever tenets you're led to deal with these people rather than trying to be too intrusive in a situation like that. There shouldn't be a confrontation with these people. I don't think. There shouldn't be a big confrontation where you and these people are battling it out and fighting in the streets and there's gunfire and just like there's no physical confrontation. There's nothing. There's no reason to do that. There's no precedent for that says that that's going to fix anything. And it won't. It won't fix anything. There's no way that it can. The only thing that can set the world right is to fix yourself. Fix your soul. Fix your intent. Fix your connection with God. Bring God more into this world and bring Him more into your life. That's all you can do. That's all you can do in this life in order to help. It's okay to do good things for people, to help them and to give money or food or whatever you can or whatever capacity that you're able to. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But that's not the point. Anything that you do, if it helps further the purpose of bringing the Spirit of the Lord into the world, then it is good. That's all. That's what I mean. If you're able to bring the Spirit to those people by giving them food, then that's good. But if it brings them farther away from God by happenstance because you're giving them food, when in reality it's furthering a bad will, then you shouldn't do that. You should choose differently. You should think about when you do things carefully and make decisions about what you think would be the best. Now, what's weird about that is that I often, when I'm making art, when I'm doing these videos, I often channel God, I believe. I mean, don't take that so seriously, like, oh, you're like a prophet, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm not worried about the title and the credit of it. I just do what comes natural to me in my life. And that's what comes natural, is to just let everything go and just start speaking and start doing things without overthinking it. That's all. It doesn't mean I don't have a conscious choice. I'm making a conscious choice to open myself up to the Lord and allow Him to speak through me. That's all. I don't take credit for these things that I write or the things that I say in these videos. I give all credit to God. If anything is imperfect and fallible, then it is not God speaking. You know? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you run a guitar, let's just use this as an analogy. If you run a really, really expensive guitar through a crappy amp that's busted up, it's been through a lot, it's that has wires. They're all twisted and jacked up, and you will run it through that amp. It's going to sound kind of crappy, but you're still going to get the notes. You're still going to be able to hear the notes to some extent. You're still going to be able to get the meaning of what's being played, even though it's not the best quality and it's being distorted by that crappy amp. That's kind of like how it is here. When I allow God to speak through me, it still, his frequency to some degree still has to run through who I am and be spoken out through my voice. So you're not going to get the raw power, the raw, you know, uh, information. You're not going to get the raw feeling. But what my words can do, I believe, if God were to speak through me, and if He does speak through me, is they should be able to form like a pattern that elicits an emotional response and that triggers something that will allow you to glean the information that isn't the actual words put together in a sentence. It should allow you to come to an understanding about something that comes from God that I don't even necessarily know. You know, I have my own understanding of something after I read it and watch it back and see what I said, but during the process of it, I do not. I do not set an intention. I just start speaking. I advise you, if you're having trouble artistically, to try and do the same. Just let go. Try not to control. No, control can be set upon yourself. You ultimately are the one who puts yourself in bondage at the end of the day. No one else really has power over you if you really think about it. Who has power over you? No one. No one. Only God. And God grants free will. So, God's not a tyrant. He wishes you would willingly go with Him. And if you do, then He will guide you. He's not going to force you to do anything. You know? You have you have this concept that you have no power, yet you're powerless, and that is just not true. If you want to make great art, if you want to write great things, if you want to preach the gospel, and if you want to bring light into this world, you surely can. You just have to set your attention to it. Ask God, and He will help you. That's all. That's it. That's all you have to do. It's really that simple. Now, the active, like, ways and means of it cannot be. You may have to go through a really hard time in order for you to be set up to do that. But if you ask God, He will make it happen. You may not like how it has to happen and what's going to have to occur leading up to that point for you in order for you to achieve that, but so be it. You know God has your best interest in mind. You just have to trust. As long as you trust God and don't worry about the world, things will work out. Period. They will. That's all there is to it. That's infallible. God says that to us. Things will work out if we love Him, and that's it. You know, that's it. And one last thing I want to talk about was this. I talked about this in the Sun video about how the there's a narrow path towards God to reach, and a wide path that leads to destruction. Something about that Something about that strikes me like there's a meaning there that I'm missing. I've got to really meditate on that tonight. Maybe I'll make another video specifically about that. Something about that, the way people use it as like an offensive weapon against people, like a judgmental weapon to say that you will not make it into heaven. You know, like, oh, you will never find it. Only few find it, and you're not going to be one of those people if you do these things that I don't approve of. You know, how are you to know? I think God does not play semantics with us at all. I think the way that He speaks is through a way that incorporates many different meanings all wrapped up into one. And I think there's a much wider error of margin there than it may initially seem. And if not, that's okay. But what God's telling me right now is that you are able to get out of this place without as much threading the needle as it may seem, or that you underestimate your ability and your stature of who you are. You underestimate who you are. It's like, like, or both of those, you know. I believe that's 100% true. I believe we're so powerful and we have gone through so much and we have done so much in order to get to this point. I really do. I really, really do. We are already victorious by the fact that we have the Bible, that we have the Word, that we have the Spirit. We are victorious through God. If you know Jesus Christ, you are victorious. That's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. And now you would say, "Oh, well, what if I'm a murderer and a rapist and a bad guy?" You know. Well, if that's the case, if you know Jesus Christ, He will change you from that. He will. That's all. Like, it's one and the same. Knowing Jesus Christ and being changed is the same. If you know Jesus Christ and you believe in Him, you will be changed. You will. If you want to go to heaven and you say that to God, He will change you and make you into the person that is able to be in His kingdom. Now, whether that, like I said, whether that's going to be a painful process or not, I'm not sure. It certainly could be. But what is painful? You know, what is pain? It's just like the pain of having to let go. The pain of having to let go of who you thought you were. That's really all it is. All the suffering that you go through, all the heartbreak, all the disappointment, the betrayal, you know? What else is it other than being forced to let go of all these things? But in reality, you ask for that to happen. So don't blame God. Thank God. Thank God for allowing you to experience that and for allowing you to be, brought out from the desert. For allowing you to be brought into His light. Thank God for that. Thank God for the hardships in your life because you know that they're forming you into a stronger being, closer to your God. That's all they're doing. And thank God for every sign you receive. Thank God for all the gematria in your life. Thank God for all the numerology that He presents to you so that you can know the truth. Thank God for just the pure awareness that fires through everything that you look at, that shows you the information that is required. I thank God for it every day. It's everywhere. It's everywhere that I look. And I really appreciate that God makes it so easy. He didn't have to do that, but He did. I asked Him for knowledge, and He granted it to me. I asked Him for wisdom, and so it was. I asked Him for guidance, and so it was. I asked Him for a way to preach the gospel, and so it was. I asked Him for guidance, and so it was. And so it will be until eternity. God bless. Make sure you pray tonight. Thank God for the things that you have. And don't blame Him for the things that you don't, because they're likely not things that you need. Have a good night.